space would already be, I think, pretty active in this. What are some of the folks, I mean, do we have a line of folks that are ready to move in? And how much, what are we anticipating the city to generate revenue-wise on this, on a month-by-month basis?
Well, in your question about the businesses, we've talked to Septentrio, Los Bagels, Kinetic Coffee,
We've been talking about Slice of Humboldt for a while.
So more service-oriented than retail-oriented?
I think there's kind of a mix. You know, we definitely have kind of a food desert out here, so there's a lot of interest with food production. We do have some, you know, artisanal bakers and producers that are interested in commercial kitchen space that I think could be accommodated in this project, which would be great. And then we do have a lot of artists who are interested in like maker space or potential gallery space that I think would be another use. And then we just have kind of a burgeoning recreation economy that's really starting to take off. So we have a lot of mountain bikers coming out. We have the steelhead fishery. You know, we have a lot of people coming out for different events. We have a bike park that's proposed as part of this.
I think
That would be
specific
enhanced.
to the retail aspect of this, is there a waiting list already of retailers ready to come in? And two, what is the projected revenue that the city would see off of these?
So I think those are all interesting questions if you had a project that was further along in the process. And so it's difficult to be able to make those projections or commitments. This project needs to go through a process of approval and then financing and then construction, so that's a ways out. So we don't have anyone that's committed to come in tomorrow
They
because
may not
they're.
be under contract, but we don't have anybody who's saying, yeah, you know, let me know when this is in, or with 4,000 square feet of retail space, we
We don't
expect to have X amount of revenue coming in or tax coming in. I mean,
I think those are very difficult projections to make at this point in time.
yeah, nobody can really commit at this point because we don't have a project yet. And it's, you know, gonna be 2 years until it's done, so that would all come kind of as we go. And we really hope that we can, you know, get good tenants in there, and that's the intention, so.
But you guys also have gone through a process of contacting local businesses to let them know about this project and see who's interested.
Correct.
Okay, for me to speak? Of course. Basically, and you have some more things that are not on the website, on the city website. I'm glad you started having a few more, like your floor plan for your live work thing is on here now. Hopefully that'll be put in. There are no elevations for that particular part of the project, and I'll be quite direct with you. That is the main thing that I support is the live work use there. You only have 3 of them. And the zone is primarily intended for commercial manufacturing use with residential dwellings as a secondary use to grow a live work type environment. That's what the ozone was intended for, and that's what the public would like to see down there, because that's what the conversion is. It's not a conversion to just straight residential use. The other thing I wanted to point out is in your arena numbers, it looks like out of the 23, it's about 50-50 between the four different things, 25, 25, and 25, quite equally spaced. And my perception is there's something called a poverty pocket. And the housing board really wants us to have the people of means living together with the people who are not. And unfortunately, when you go before your housing element here, you're gonna find that this whole area, a good share of our low-income housing is one little area. And that's not the intent, and Blue Lake's really good about having everybody living throughout here of all different levels of things, and this would be the first time that didn't happen. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Lastly, I'd like to say, your general plan, and I appreciate the candor of Gary Reese there, hasn't been updated since '86, and your ozone is not consistent with the general plan. Now, I go there as a developer to look at what I could do on your particular lot, and the general plan itself doesn't have the ozone in it. It hasn't been made consistent with the general plan. And so in other words, when you go to the general plan, this is still zoned industrial. And when you come to your chart to show what you're supposed to do, be able to do in there, ozone isn't mentioned in your general plan. Now, there's another document, but those have to be made consistent. And that's what the housing element will probably require us to do before you're able to move forward with your housing element. Those are my comments. Thank you.
If if I could respond to the comment about there not being consistency, Ken, I think you might have reviewed an outdated version of the general plan that was on the city's website.
It's on the website today.
It was. Well, there's also the land use element that was updated in April 2021. Now, once that's adopted, it is functionally part of the general plan. It doesn't have to be assembled, you know, in a way, you know what I mean? Like, it's part of the general plan. That update did occur and actually went through each item where identified that it is a zoning classification in the general plan land use. It has been found to be consistent with the mixed use designation. So those revisions were made.
I understand, I feel that determination was made erroneously, because myself as a developer should not go see one map that shows one thing in one document and another that shows the opposite. That's my point, so thank you.
Yeah, and that's just a matter of the
Next
condition
question.
of the city assembling the general plan. I think
Correct.
what we're gonna do going forward is to have each element be its own elements, basically, so you can look at each one individually. But anyway, the city has not had the ability to do a comprehensive general plan update since the mid-80s because it costs, well, nowadays, it's probably over $1 million to do that, even for a small community like this.
I understand.
So Blue Lake has done what it needed to be consistent with state law, and it's done targeted updates of the things that needed to be amended over time.
I think your housing element may reflect that. Thank you for my opportunity to come on, comment.
Absolutely.
And in terms of the affordable housing project, you know, we do have the 40 units that would be affordable, and then the 3 live work units that are not affordable, but hopefully by, you know, getting the live and the work together becomes more affordable for a business owner. But, you know, we get grants for all of this, and it's financed through the state through federal tax credits, and so, you know, even having the 3 live work units is a burden on the project and its financing. So it's kind of an economics thing. We need to have tax credits to build the project, and we can't do that unless they're affordable.
How does, being a current business owner in this zoning, with it changing to the opportunity zone and being one of the stinkiest businesses in the area, how does that going to affect us as this progresses and everybody starts surrounding us? I'm the owner of B&B Portable Toilets and Johnson Smoke Rentals here on Taylor Way. So that's our biggest concern is how is this going to affect the current business owners in our situation as this progresses? With it going to this opportunity zone from where we're at.
Yeah, so for you guys, if some of the uses you're conducting are not listed uses, either principally or conditionally, then it could limit your ability to expand, except that you'd be able to apply for a use permit for expanding, which means you could ask for, it's kind of a catch-all under use, things allowed with the use permit, where it's like, you know, things not specifically allowed in the zone could be allowed with the use permit if the planning commission is able to make certain findings. So that's as far as expansion. Now, as far as your existing operation and the old zoning had performance standards in it too. And there was performance standards for odors. So if odors were to become so objectionable and constantly be leaving the boundaries of your site, and people on the levee are calling the air district and complaining, or calling the city and complaining, it could result in some action against you guys to rein in those odors. And that could have happened under the old zoning, and it could happen under the opportunity.
Which I would for sure see if we're coming to, in that, that's gonna be the biggest thing, and we are noisy. And the odor's the biggest thing, but we have ways to control that. We can put up a building, go inside for our transfers, so forth, to control that. But, sorry, but there's no, our operation that we're established and have there, besides odor, and what about the noise?
Yeah, good question. So the city currently has noise standards. And in the opportunity zone, it requires you to basically design any new sensitive receptor type development, such as residential development, to be able to meet an acceptable interior noise standard. In other words, they're gonna have to do a noise study. And they're gonna have to figure out what the existing noise environment is. And if it exceeds levels surrounding that development to where you wouldn't get an appropriate interior noise level, like 45 decibels is the standard, then they're gonna have to put in some additional noise attenuation. That's similar to what's required, for example, of the affordable housing projects that have been done along Highway 101 going through Eureka. That is a very loud noise environment. And they have the ability to do that study and develop residential units which can meet an acceptable interior standard. They also have the ability to design their outdoor activity areas to have noise buffering in ways where the noise levels wouldn't be as objectionable. So that is incorporated into the city's code to require that for new noise-sensitive land uses that could be along a major roadway, you know, near industrial or, you know, heavy commercial uses like yours, that type of thing. You guys pick amongst yourselves. I don't know who was first, so.
Well, I'll go, I'll just jump in. Regarding financing, it's my understanding that there is an application process, some kind of application process, some kind of funding cycle that occurs. So has Danco secured whatever state funding is necessary to do this project at this point?
No, we don't have a fully funded project yet. To do that, we need our entitlements. So the first step is really to pass the planning commission and get the project entitled. And then we're allowed to apply for financing in many programs. The City of Blue Lake has secured some funding at this point, but definitely not enough to round out the package. So we're gonna continue to apply for funding as soon as we get entitlements. Unfortunately, I think we'll be missing HTD's Supernova round this year. And there is a certain level of what we call soft financing that's needed in order to go after tax credits. And tax credits completes the financing package. So there's only a certain amount of funding rounds during the year. One's coming up in July, and we're not anticipating that we're gonna make that this year, unfortunately. So, you know, funding sources come out all the time, and we'll be applying for everything that fits the project once we're able to. But we do not have a fully funded project.
Okay. So, Kent mentioned, I was at the planning commission meeting when ozone was introduced, and there was a concern among the public that the city was losing the city-owned land that was designated for income production and industrial type uses and changing it into housing. And the city said, no, that's not gonna be happening. We're talking about live work only, because these projects, industrial type projects or lightweight type of projects, need to have some housing to make them pencil out. So it'd be like a few units. And now we're talking about a whole lot more than that, so it sounds like that has changed and that original promise is really not come to pass. So my concern is, at least there's still some, a lower level of commercial. So what if the commercial space stays vacant, or what if buildings or businesses come in and then they just fail and they go out? And there's a lot of vacant space in the commercial areas. Now you're talking about penciling out, even with a live work, which is a problem in terms of penciling a project out, you were saying. So if those stay vacant for a long time, is there a cost somehow to somebody, the city, a cost to Danco if they're managing this? And will there ever be a time when they come back to the city and say, well, you know what, we just can't really maintain this commercial space, we're gonna have to make this housing too? That's the question is, will that happen? And have you projected for that? And who does absorb the cost if there is a lot of vacancy?
So I think, so as part of the opportunity zoning process, we recognized that we were not getting investment in the park, that we were not attracting development, and we knew that we needed to change our approach, and really housing was really the attractor to try and get us some other type of investment in the Powers Creek district, because what we had wasn't working. We have some light manufacturing. It produces very few jobs, very little revenue for the city. We bear most of the impacts from it, and it's not meeting the needs of what our community has to keep this city afloat. So looking at leveraging housing to get us retail commercial investment, that's what the opportunity zone was written for. Now, can we guarantee 100% that that's going to work, that every business is gonna be successful? Absolutely not. But this project, this housing, the affordable housing project, is what's giving us the best opportunity to be successful and to build capacity and to attract business. Because no one's gonna come in and build speculation retail commercial space. It's not gonna happen. Business is hard. Businesses fail every day. You know, the food business is hard, margins are tight, investment capital is tight right now, financing is hard to get. So to expect that site to attract that type of level of financial investment without that other incentive of the affordable housing project and financing is just pie in the sky, honestly. But when we did look at this holistically, and we did look at creating these reciprocal economies by providing space for people to live and to work. Can we guarantee that they're gonna live and work there? Absolutely not. We can't mandate, if you live in the unit, you gotta work downstairs. We can't do that. But it is a natural progression. It does create reciprocal economies. People will be living, they'll be working, they'll be purchasing, they'll be eating, they'll be recreating. So it starts to create an economy that feeds on itself. And that's gonna give us the most potential for success. Is it gonna be 100% successful? No. Maybe it'll be more successful than we think. Is it gonna be detrimental? I can't see how it could be, honestly.
Is there a cost, I'm just wondering, is there a cost to the city or to Danco with vacancy?
Not that I mean, that's not part of anything we've discussed.
Other than not getting the sales tax.
Right.
that
I mean, you have
generated.
vacant space, or you have vacant space.
There's
you know?
no income, right, because you have a vacant space.
Not at this point. This is something we can discuss. I mean, our goal is to attract business. Our goal is to provide a space for people to be successful. I think that's the role of the city, is to create a foundation for people's success and investment. It's not our job to create their success, but it is our job to try and facilitate that success the best way we can. And that's by creating adequate infrastructure, by creating and inviting and clean and safe communities for business to thrive in, and for creating opportunities for everyone. That's the role of the city.
You've had your hand up a while, Lisa.
Okay, thanks, Gary. Hi. Yeah, my concern since I started getting involved with this project is scale and community meetings. This is the second one that I've been to, and I think there need to be more, and having reports updated on the website. What I want to say is that it seems to me at the last Planning Commission meeting that some of y'all were at, I was surprised to see that there was a categorical exclusion for the California Environmental Quality Act for CEQA, given that the environmental reports have not been finished. And in fact, some of the surveys and the biological assessment, and let me just step back a minute, the other thing that comes up is considering all the present and foreseeable future projects that are expected in that whole area, not just 1, 2, 3. So we've talked about that and looking at it as a whole, like in the word master plan came up before, which would include transportation. So that's another preface to what I'm getting ready to say, is that it's not opposed to housing, not opposed to the residential and workspace. It's the scale and the communication. And when I looked at when I saw that they had already, that the city's looking at an exemption from CEQA, most of the documents, the biological assessment that was done, first of all, it was only done on 2 properties, not the whole area. So cumulative effects for foreseeable future projects have not been considered. They also noted in there are 2 cases, at least 2 cases, where they said, we did surveys for certain species in December 28th of 2022. Let's see, migratory birds aren't coming through then, or if I don't expect there's gonna be too many rare and special status species down there plant-wise, but you're still basing, they actually recommended that surveys be redone during these times prior to construction. So I don't know how you can move forward with an exemption without having this codified as well. And the other one is the traffic report. And also the soils report only looked at Danco and not Russo's property. So again, they're not looking at the other projects that are being considered here, Paradise K, another one, I don't know the name, but also what are the foreseeable future projects, Bike Park. how much impervious surface is gonna be out there cumulatively. So cumulative effects have not been done. And I also looked at the traffic report, and the traffic report does not cover existing travel by the gravel trucks at all. There was no mention of the gravel trucks, so you've got they anticipate 1,500, what is it, day, what was the metric that they used here? It has to do. Okay, 1,700. But yet we have truck traffic that goes through there, going to the business at the end and back. That was not considered in that. So again, cumulative effects, current conditions, what would it be like if we developed this? But what about what the status quo is? That was not considered. So the biological report and the traffic report are not considering all the proposed developments and the foreseeable future one. I do not see the grounds for an exemption for CEQA based upon those two things, which are two things that are needed for this to be considered. And to go in advance at a May 15th meeting, Planning Commission already recommended this when we as a public have not seen a summary of these reports. I have not seen the CEQA document. I have not seen anything because maybe you say it's exempt. And yet they recommend that surveys be done for migratory birds and then botanical surveys be done again. And there was one other, but I can't come up with that one right now. So I don't think the CEQA is exemptable at this point, and because the data is not there to support, there's going to be negligible effect to special status species. And also the traffic issue did not consider any of the existing gravel trucks that are going up and down that road. Thank you.
Strikes me as an opportunity for those of us that are trying to see some changes made to this. In other words, is it possible at this time, based on community input, we've got community input going back to 2017 or possibly 97, what Gary presented, but is it possible to change the project at this point in time before we get it approved?
I guess it depends on what you'd like to change. I mean, we have a lot of places where we could have input, like in the community room, what kind of amenities would we like to see there, what kind of art goes into the project. In terms of unit count and parking and layout, I mean, the project fits within the zoning, as Gary mentioned before, and so, you know, there's a certain level of project, a certain unit count that we would need in order to make it work financially. And, you know, we've already submitted our packet to the city. For the most part, Gary's planning team is coming up with responses, and we'll resubmit again. But there's, you know, the project has been pretty fully formed and vetted for quite some time, so.
Thank you for that. So that's the first half of my two questions. I'd like to talk to you separately, outside of this meeting, about what specific changes this committee member would like to see. The other question is Danco willing to follow the California Department of Fish and Wildlife guidelines on riparian protection? The Humboldt County General Plan Revision recently adopted those guidelines, and what's being proposed in this project do not conform.
I haven't seen the guidelines, so I'm not sure how to answer that. But there's no wetlands on the site, there's no navigable US waterways on the site.
The question is about riparian encroachment.
Okay.
Our street, that's monitoring street.
Okay. I'm not aware of those guidelines, but we can take a look at them and.
Be happy to share them with you. I understand that Michael Van Hatten is either going to be calling Mandy or has already. My last question is for the city. What's up with leasing the property for $1 a year for 55 years with a 35-year option for renewal? You're in a case where you need funding, and you're giving away an economic value of use of this property for 55 years.
Yep. Good question. Great question.
So that could be part of the financing of the project in a sense. So it's essentially public funding to build the project. We will get an appraisal on the project, and then that could count towards our winning of tax credits, so bringing more money into the project, and so it could form part of our financing package in a way.
I don't understand, I've read the DDA.
Sounds like a giveaway.
And the question is, it's like a contract between Danco and the city, and it says the city's gonna lease this property to Danco for $1 a year for 55 years, with an option to extend for 35 more years.
Yeah, we actually just closed a deal in Santa Clara County today, where we had the same thing happen. It's kind of like public funding into the job, without actually having to give any public funding. So it's a way of supporting the project without having to actually spend any money, and it's one of the ways which we'll be able to finance the project. There's not a ton of public funding out there for projects like these in this area, and so, it's, you know,
Well, I understand the gift, but the idea is the question to the city, why would the city wanna do that?
Because no one's gonna, we couldn't get it any other way, we get housing, and we get business opportunity, when we get investment into the Power Street District, and we get improved infrastructure, and we get jobs in our community, and we get sales tax, and we get recreation investment, for our property that's appraised. I think our last appraisal was $285,000. It seems like a really good long-term strategy for the community. It's a great way to leverage a piece of property that has a pretty low value to get a very long-term investment into the community. And it's not my decision, it was my recommendation, absolutely, I'm 110% behind it, but it was the council who made that decision.
And the
What
idea-
year?
The reason communities do this is because the rent's not really gonna be that much.
Yeah, which council?
Project sales tax wise and other benefits far outweigh that. So when you're willing to do that, it's fine.
Yeah.
How does it not move?
I
We
don't-
don't have any projections.
Yeah, is there anybody trying to buy the land?
I'll give you 285 for it.
Okay, thank you. I have a question. The property across the street from this development is an industrial park, in an industrial area. We still have Ocean Tower. And Danco, is aware that the Ultra Power facility is going to have to be cleaned. It's gonna take a lot of energy, it's gonna be noisy, dusty, getting rid of what is there. And I'm kind of curious about the timeline for when is, it's 2025, I believe, when the lease is up. So the city did not have an agreement with, the power plant for cleanup. We're gonna be responsible for that. And is Danco aware of that? That there is going to be,
This is the site across from Taylor Way.
yeah, it's gonna be a large cleanup there, a lot of debris and dust. And also, this is a 3-story building on the CEQA note that has been discussed. This is a 3-story building, and I didn't see any, conversation from, our district about, the ability to respond to a 3-story building. I know in Arcata, they have to have a fire truck, ladder truck to do this. The Blue Lake Fire Department did, and I'm not speaking, I'm not a spokesperson for the fire department by any means. I'm just an observer. The fire department does not have a ladder truck, and I'm looking at the access for a fire truck to be able to reach some of these areas, and like I said, I'm just an observer. I don't see a response that is, compatible to a safe response for, and I haven't heard of anybody from the fire department commenting on specifically the response for safety in this building.
Yeah, staff did meet with fire marshal, and Laidlaw, as well as the chief, and they reviewed the plans, and we discussed, you know, any concerns they had. They're not concerned about serving, you know, this building. It would be a new building with better egress than you have in a lot of the buildings in town, especially older buildings with, you know, modern fire suppression systems. So in their mind, new buildings that are built today are a lot easier to serve than some of the older buildings. I mean, they their comments primarily related to where they wanted fire hydrants located and where they wanted fire department connections and things like that so that they could best serve the site. So they were looking at basically 2 fire hydrants on either side of the parking areas near the trail. I think they were looking at one in the front of the site, and they were sitting there doing measurements on the site plan, figuring out if it meant distances and things like that. So we
But it's
received.
gonna be an added expense for the fire safety to have the sprinkler system within the system, I would assume.
Yeah,
Not part of the building.
it's required
Part
by
of the
law.
building code.
Building code.
Getting more women in homes in some areas.
Yeah, single-family residence
Yeah.
requires it now. So.
When will we get the report from the fire chief in writing? That was something that was sent out to me.
Yeah, I think you did a public records
I
request
did, yeah,
today.
I'm hoping to get that. That's overdue right now, so.
Yeah, so I was notified of that today, so I'll be assembling.
Thank you,
referral
appreciate it.
comments and providing.
And then maybe put it on the website also.
Yeah, we could do that.
Thank you.
And I think there's a high hope that we'll be able to gain some housing for firefighters in our community, because it's one of the things we're really struggling with right now. Our numbers in the fire department are very low, and part of it is housing. It's very hard for entry-level firefighters, wildland firefighters, just anyone in general to be able to find housing in Blue Lake. And that was one of the things that our fire chief actually commented on, because we have several firefighters right now that are associated with Cal Poly Humboldt, going to their fire sciences program, and they want to be a part of our district and part of our department, but they can't find housing here. So there is a high hope that some of this housing will translate to more people volunteering in our community, as well as more kids in our school and people, recreating and participating in our communities. I think we're seeing across the board where our volunteer numbers are starting to go down, and it's a direct reflection of just kind of the aging of the community and not being replacing, housing that we're losing bedrooms. So there's a lot of hope with this type of development as well, that we'll see some residual benefits.
And if I could add, if anybody wants to volunteer for the volunteer firefighters, yes, please do. I mean, it's a worthwhile service to your community. My husband was a 30-year member, volunteer fire department. Wonderful opportunity.
I had a question kind of building on the fire. There's only one way in and out, and the traffic analysis looked at just this, not the gravel, or even the develop that would replace, the power plant. I never thought of us as like in the wildland urban interface until we had the fire here and then one down in Santa Rosa. Just a concern that there's only one way in and out of there, in case of a large, wildfire or earthquake or something like that. I'm just wondering what the planning is for that.
Yeah, I mean, that access was developed for heavy industrial truck traffic.
But
And
not
for that reason-
residential,
What's that?
not residential.
Sure, but as far as emergency access for those type of vehicles, I mean, that was not a concern that they expressed.
Yeah, just
To get
people,
out of
people
town.
leaving,
The level of
evacuating.
residential development being so significant in this area that you're not gonna be able to get in and out of there, and that wasn't a concern that they expressed that.
And the trail behind is actually fire access, that we use as the trail, actually fire access.
There's
But like-
also the connection between Taylor that goes through Pepe's yard and connects over to the Old County Road as well. And there's a new bridge that was installed there. In the event that there was an emergency evacuation need, there's also that access.
But
Yeah.
that's barricaded right now.
It should not be barricaded.
And if I could clarify on the traffic study, they did traffic counts on Taylor, and that included the truck traffic. I'm not sure what specifically you guys are saying about it not being counted. Those traffic counts they did, there was truck traffic happening at that time. So what exactly are we saying in regards to it not considering truck traffic?
They didn't talk about these, they just talked about traffic, from this new development being the Danco and construction traffic.
And what is the concern that truck traffic is gonna do what exactly?
Oh, but the baseline, what was they didn't consider the baseline, because they were talking about, with this development, they're gonna have, 1,700 day, I can't remember the number exactly, in and out per day
Average
cars.
daily trips.
Yeah, whatever that acronym is they use. But they talk about that for the development and not so much what's the baseline use of that area by the existing, what's going on now, existing trucks and things like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, let's be
So-
clear, it's not that much truck traffic. I mean, when Blue Lake Power was going, it was 40 trucks in And I look to other areas of the county, such as Highway 101 through Eureka, where they're doing mixed-use and affordable housing projects. The truck traffic is significant on those roadways.
But we're not on 101, we're in Eureka.
So, yeah.
I understand.
We're a little bedroom community, man.
They're able to do this type of development in those areas, what makes it unsuitable for the limited amount of truck traffic we have here?
That is passing through a school zone.
Understand that argument.
It goes right through a school zone and through the heart of our town.
Right,
Okay, but that's the existing baseline condition under CEQA. This project is not going to resolve the city's industrial truck route having gravel trucks. I mean, that's not the obligation of these projects in any
The
way.
zone actually reduces the industrial loading by reducing the industrial footprint. We rezoned out of more of an industrial context into a mixed-use development that has a lighter traffic footprint than gravel trucks, logging trucks, chip trucks that we all used to have coming through our community
Well,
for
that's true.
generations.
What about
No,
construction?
no, not
I mean, you know.
No, I don't agree with that comment based upon what I read.
Yeah, I mean, the truck traffic levels, at the last time the city did a general comprehensive plan update, was far more significant percentage of truck trips going through because of the logging industry, the mining industry, and the other industries occurring at that time. It has reduced significantly, as has the average daily traffic. They were counting, 3,500 trips on average on Greenwood at that time. Today, it's maybe 2,000, and when you add these projects, it might get back to what it was in the mid-'80s, maybe. But not trucks, because of what Mandy said. We're swapping out, industrial with mixed use, which is gonna be vehicles that light trucks and maybe a few delivery trucks, but it's not going to be the potential for heavy truck traffic that could have happened otherwise or used to happen. when
Right,
those-
but what I said, the document did not address the existing, I know it may be less than it was, I'm talking about, back to what it is existing in addition to what this development, and not considering the Russo development, the other development, or anything like that. They just considered this, and so,
No, they actually
You're
considered
actually
all
right.
four of those projects
that,
that
you're
I
right,
showed
that's,
earlier.
I stand corrected on that, but what I did not see was that there was no mention of existing truck traffic in there, and I know it's not as much, my point is that the document didn't reveal that type of thing.
And why do you view that as a flaw? It counted it in the traffic
Because
counts.
it exists, it's a
Yeah,
reality.
So it counted it in the traffic counts that they took of existing conditions.
That's not what I got from that.
If you look at the data, it counts it in there. The
It's-
fact
it
that they
talks
didn't bring it
about-
up is probably because that low level of truck traffic is not a significant concern.
I would like to say, when I grew up in Greenwood,
Yeah.
there were mills all over here,
Uh-huh.
and the traffic was a lot worse than it is now, except for personal cars.
And that's what the general plan for the 1980s reflects, what you just said.
Well, I grew up before the 80s.
The question I have is, I understand the driver of this is affordable housing, and that there's a set limit, was it 34?
34.
Requirement, do I have that correct?
I just want to clarify, it's not a set
Oh,
limit.
no, I'm sorry, but what the minimum limit or whatever?
That was
it is.
the
Okay.
requested requirement
Okay.
from Lena.
So, if that's the driver, and another city says they want tax-based and this and that, when I look at this, it's way bigger. So, what about 34 units? Move the commercial over to where the courtyard is in that zone? Would Danco build something smaller? Can you make it pencil? Or is this rooftop restaurant a community zone? Is that what you need to meet your financial obligations?
It's always a lot easier when you build, more units, just because of economies of scale.
Of course, I understand, and I do get that.
And the properties are, have the opportunity to be better maintained, have better services, serve the community in its need in a better way.
But if it were to actually meet what's required, instead of something that's bigger and more extravagant, would Danco be willing to entertain that? Or you don't know?
So what would be so it would be like 6 units? I mean, it's
Or
not.
if you had 34, if you did the
So,
34
but they got
versus
40.
40.
And if I could just add, so you said what's required, you're referring to the RENA allocation from the last two cycles.
Yeah, because this is
34 units,
way
yeah.
bigger, and again, you got a community room, you got a rooftop restaurant. I don't see how that blends in to affordable housing. Those are extravagant things that get added on to make the project bigger, and Danco gets to make more money, and the city gets this and that. And again, I'm not trying, by the way, I'm not trying to be accusatory, I'm trying to get an answer as to why can't it be done to what's required?
One thing, if I could clarify, so the zone itself doesn't allow residential-only development, so it's kind of like inclusionary zoning for non-residential, so we're in essence forcing people doing developments down there to do a certain percentage of commercial. You can't just do a residential-only development.
Okay.
And then I would pivot to say that the
Oh,
arena
so good.
allocation that's provided in no way is saying that you're gonna saturate the market or that you shouldn't plan for any more than those 30 or 40 units. It's in essence saying,
I get that.
this is the minimum that the state feels it can ask for you
Then
to
why,
plan.
again, but why can't it be made smaller with less of a footprint? Because it's big
Yeah.
there, and it's, you know, it's a large thing, and again, I know you're gonna say, well, but in Fortuna, or in Eureka, or this and that, I get it, or Arcata, but this is Blue Lake, and it's there, and it's different, and it seems too big, and I've been saying this comment for quite a while, it seems too big, out of scale, can it be made to fit in better? You know, that's my whole
And
point.
didn't Cash say it could?
I think
Well,
that's an
Cash
opinion, though.
alluded to,
I think
could
that's
that
an
come
opinion.
up?
And I
don't
just
know.
wanna be clear about what the planning commission's role will be when they review this project. You know, they have to look, is it consistent with the general plan, is it consistent with the zoning code? And if it is, which it is, as far as density, then they should be approving it. Otherwise, it could be considered an abuse of discretion to say, my subjective opinion is that even though it meets the rules, I don't like it and I think it's too big. That's an inappropriate finding to make for denying a project or asking a project to be reduced.
From who, from the planning? Commission?
Yeah,
Or
what?
For the planning commission's role, so I would, point to the California Department of Housing and Community Development, which is paying attention to this project and other affordable housing projects throughout the state.
But
And
again,
there's
it's
laws-
more than an affordable housing project. It's
Absolutely.
retail, it's a rooftop restaurant, it's a community center, it's bigger. So that's the issue. I
We
mean, I
don't
haven't
want all
gotten an
that.
answer. Would your company potentially, of course, you don't have the numbers in front of you, yada, yada, I get it. But would you make something smaller if you could?
We've definitely done smaller projects. We have 18-unit project in Arcata. We have 24, 25-unit projects. We do smaller projects all the time. But we like to do what's wanted in the area, what's within the zoning. Like Gary said, we're not maxing out the density.
then do
We
what
believe
the
that this
public
project is
asks.
good for the area, that it's a reasonable amount of units for the land. It's a ton of open space.
Well, I certainly understand it, and I understand the city's position and your position. I just wanted to ask, is that feasible? Because I haven't heard that. It's always like, well, it's gotta be this big, we gotta have all this stuff. And again, so that was
Doesn't
my
have to
question.
The positive thing, though, if you look at it from the other side,